Admiral Kang Hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the gentle beeping of monitors. His officers moved around him with practiced efficiency, checking systems and running routine scans of the empty space around them. The Vielthian Empire's Third Fleet was powerful. 12 heavy cruisers floated in perfect formation around the flagship Eternal Dominion. Each ship was over 800 meters long, covered in gleaming white armor that reflected the light of distant stars. Blue energy fields shimmered around each vessel, creating protective barriers that could stop any weapon the Empire had ever faced. Kang Hyun felt proud as he looked at his fleet. For 2 centuries, no enemy had broken through Velthian plasma shields. Their energy weapons could melt through the strongest metals in seconds. The Empire had conquered 17 star systems using this technology, and each victory had been swift and decisive. Commander Park Ji-won walked up to the Admiral, carrying a data tablet. She was young for her rank, but Kang Hyun trusted her completely. Her dark hair was pulled back in the standard military style, and her uniform was perfectly pressed. Like all Velthians, she had pale blue skin and large dark eyes that seemed to catch every detail. "Admiral, we have received the latest intelligence reports from High Command," Park Ji-won said, offering him the tablet. Kang Hyun took the device and scrolled through the information. Most of it was routine patrol data and supply schedules. But one section caught his attention. The report mentioned a new species that had been spotted in nearby sectors. They called themselves humans. "These humans," Kang Hyun said, pointing at the screen. "What do we know about them?" Park Ji-won pulled up additional files on her own tablet. "Very little, sir. Our scouts have only encountered a few of their ships. They appear to be primitive scavengers. Their vessels are crude and angular, made from simple metals. No energy shields detected. No plasma weapons. They seem to flee whenever our ships appear." Kang Hyun nodded slowly. It was the same story the Empire had heard many times before. A new species would appear, make some noise, and then quickly learn to stay out of Velthian space. Most alien races were smart enough to avoid conflict once they saw the Empire's superior technology. "Any signs of aggression?" he asked. "None, sir. They appear to be focused on mining operations and trade routes. Our analysts believe they pose no threat to Imperial interests." The Admiral handed the tablet back to his commander. The humans sounded like every other weak species the Empire had encountered. They would probably submit quickly once they understood the power they were dealing with. Some might even become useful as workers or tribute providers. 3 decks below, Fleet Marshal Choi Daeho was meeting with the ship's senior officers in the main conference room. The room was circular, with a large holographic display in the center showing star charts and tactical information. Officers sat around the curved table, their blue faces illuminated by the soft glow of the hologram. Choi Daeho was older than most of the others, with silver hair and scars on his hands from battles fought decades ago. He had personally led the conquest of 6 star systems and was considered one of the Empire's greatest military minds. When he spoke, everyone listened. "The High Council has decided to establish a forward base in the Andros system," he announced, pointing to a red dot on the star chart. This will serve as a staging area for future expansion into the Outer Rim territories. One of the younger officers, Lieutenant Commander Shin Dongwoo, raised his hand. Marshal, what about the human presence in that region? Should we be concerned about potential interference? Choi Daeho smiled, showing sharp white teeth. The humans are not a concern. Our intelligence suggests they are a primitive species with no significant military capability. If they become a problem, we will deal with them as we have dealt with all others who stood in our way. The other officers nodded in agreement. They had all heard stories of the Empire's past victories. The Zephyrian Confederacy had fallen in 3 days. The Molten Worlds Republic had surrendered after a single demonstration of Imperial firepower. The pattern was always the same: shock, resistance, and then quick submission. Far away from the Velthian fleet, in a different part of space, Captain Lee Minho sat in his quarters aboard the human warship Indomitable. Unlike the clean, bright bridges of Velthian ships, his cabin was cramped and functional. Steel walls were covered with monitors, star charts, and technical readouts. Everything was built for efficiency rather than comfort. Lee Minho was reviewing the latest reports from Earth Command when his communication system chimed. He touched a button, and a holographic message appeared above his desk. The sender was Admiral Chen Wei, commander of Earth's Deep Space Defense Force. Captain Lee, the hologram said. We have received disturbing intelligence about alien fleet movements in the Andros system. A large formation of unknown vessels has been spotted near the outer planets. They appear to be establishing some kind of base or staging area. Lee Minho leaned forward, studying the data that accompanied the message. The alien ships were massive, much larger than anything humanity had built. Their energy signatures were unlike anything in Earth's databases. Most concerning was their formation pattern, which suggested military organization rather than peaceful exploration. Your orders are to proceed to the Andros system and observe, the Admiral continued. Do not engage unless directly threatened. We need to understand what we are dealing with before taking any action. Earth Command is sending additional ships to support you, but they will not arrive for several weeks. The message ended, leaving Lee Minho alone with his thoughts. He had been captain of the Indomitable for 3 years, and in that time he had never encountered a hostile alien species. Humanity's expansion into space had been mostly peaceful, with only minor conflicts over mining rights and trade routes. But something about this situation felt different. The size and organization of the alien fleet suggested a military force, not explorers or traders. Earth's long-range sensors had detected energy signatures that could only come from advanced weapons systems. Lee Minho stood up and walked to the small window in his quarters. Outside, he could see the hull of his ship stretching away into darkness. The Indomitable was not like the sleek vessels of other species. It was a kilometer long and built like a fortress, with thick armor plating and angular surfaces designed to deflect impacts. Humans had learned to build their ships tough because space was dangerous, filled with debris and radiation that could destroy a vessel in seconds. The ship's weapons were different too, while other species seemed to favor energy weapons and defensive. Shields, human engineers, had focused on kinetic systems. Magnetic accelerators could fire metal projectiles at incredible speeds, and the ship's armor was designed to absorb impacts rather than deflect energy beams. Lee Minho made his decision. He would take the Indomitable to the Andros system and see what these aliens wanted. If they were peaceful, perhaps humanity could establish diplomatic relations. If they were hostile, well, the aliens would learn that humans were not as weak as they might appear. He touched his communication panel and opened a channel to the bridge. "This is the captain. Set course for the Andros system, maximum speed, and prepare the crew for possible combat operations." The response came immediately. "Aye, sir. Course laid in. Estimated travel time, 16 hours. As the Indomitable changed direction and accelerated toward its destination, neither the human captain nor the Vielthian admiral knew that their meeting would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Captain Kim Nari guided her small exploration ship through the asteroid field at the edge of the Andros system. The vessel was called the Horizon Explorer, and it was designed for long-range scientific missions. Unlike military ships, it had minimal armor and no weapons except for mining lasers used to collect samples from space rocks. Kim Nari had been exploring this region for 3 weeks, mapping asteroid compositions and searching for rare minerals that Earth needed for its growing space colonies. Her crew of 6 scientists worked quietly in the ship's laboratories, analyzing samples and recording data. It was peaceful work, far from the busy trade routes and crowded space stations near Earth. The first sign of trouble came from the ship's long-range sensors. Kim Nari was reviewing mineral analysis reports when her communications officer, technician, Park Soo-yeon, called out from his station. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple large contacts approaching from the inner system," Park Soo-yeon said, his voice tight with concern. "The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases." Kim Nari quickly moved to the sensor console and studied the readings. 12 massive objects were moving toward their position in perfect formation. Each contact was over 800 meters long, far larger than any human vessel. Most disturbing were the energy patterns surrounding each ship, which suggested some kind of advanced shielding technology. "Distance and time to intercept?" Kim Nari asked. 200,000 kilometers and closing. At their current speed, they will reach us in approximately 20 minutes. Kim Nari felt her heart rate increase. Earth had encountered several alien species during humanity's expansion into space, but most contact had been peaceful. These ships, however, moved with military precision. Their formation and approach vector suggested they were not here for scientific research or trade. "Send a message on all standard frequencies," she ordered. "Tell them we are a peaceful exploration vessel from Earth. Request their intentions and offer to share our scientific data if they are interested." Park Soo-yeon's fingers flew over his controls as he composed and transmitted the message. The signal raced across space toward the approaching fleet. For several long minutes there was no response. Then the communication system crackled to life, with an incoming transmission. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical, speaking through some kind of translation device. "Human vessel, You are in violation of Imperial space. Reduce your speed and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction." Kim Nari exchanged worried glances with her crew. The alien's tone left no room for negotiation or explanation. She activated the ship's recording systems to capture everything that happened next, then opened a reply channel. "This is Captain Kim Nari of the Earth vessel Horizon Explorer. We were not aware this system was claimed territory. We are conducting peaceful scientific research and mean no harm. May we speak with your commanding officer?" The response came quickly, and this time the voice was different, speaking with more authority. "I am Admiral Kang Hayon of the Vielthian Empire. You will shut down your engines and submit to boarding, or we will demonstrate the consequences of defying Imperial orders." Through the main viewing screen, Kim Nari could now see the alien fleet with her own eyes. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way, covered in white armor that gleamed like polished marble. Blue energy fields surrounded each vessel, creating an otherworldly glow against the darkness of space. She had never seen technology like this before. "Admiral Kang Hyun, we respect your authority in this system. However, we request permission to complete our current research and depart peacefully. We have valuable scientific data that might be of interest to your people." There was a longer pause this time. Kim Nari could imagine the alien commander discussing options with his officers. When the response came, it carried a tone of barely controlled anger. "Your presence here is unacceptable. The Vielthian Empire claims all systems within 50 light-years of our current position. Your species will evacuate immediately or face the consequences. You have 72 hours to remove all human vessels and installations from our territory." Kim Nari felt shock wash over her. The alien was demanding that humanity abandon 3 entire star systems, including 2 that contained established mining colonies with thousands of people. The evacuation alone would take months, not days. "Admiral, what you are asking is impossible. We have civilian populations and industrial facilities that cannot be moved quickly. Surely we can reach some kind of agreement that benefits both our peoples." The alien fleet had moved much closer now, close enough that Kim Nari could see individual weapon ports and sensor arrays on their hulls. The lead ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the largest human vessel. Its weapons were already beginning to track her small exploration ship. "There will be no negotiation," Admiral Kang Hayon replied. "We will provide one demonstration of Imperial power, then you will deliver our demands to your government. Failure to comply will result in the complete annihilation of all human presence in this region." Kim Nari was about to respond when her sensor officer shouted a warning. "Captain, the lead ship is charging weapons. Energy spike detected." The Vielthian flagship turned toward a large asteroid floating about 10 kilometers away. The asteroid was roughly spherical and about 500 meters across, composed mainly of iron and nickel. It had been on Kim Nari's list of targets for mineral sampling. A brilliant beam of blue energy erupted from the alien ship's main weapon. The plasma bolt struck the asteroid dead center, and for a moment, the space rock glowed like a miniature star. Then it simply vaporized, reduced to a cloud of superheated gas that quickly dispersed into the vacuum of space. The demonstration lasted only seconds, but its message was clear. The weapon that had destroyed the asteroid could easily do the same to any human ship or space station. Kim Nari's crew stared in stunned silence at the empty space where the asteroid had been. Impressive, is it not? Admiral Kang Hyun's voice carried a note of satisfaction. That asteroid contained more metal than your entire exploration vessel. Our plasma cannons can reduce any target to its component atoms. Your primitive ships would offer no resistance whatsoever. Kim Nari tried to keep her voice steady as she replied. We understand your capabilities, Admiral. I will transmit your demands to Earth Command immediately. However, I must stress that evacuation of our civilian populations will take time. 72 hours, the alien repeated. Not 1 minute longer. Any human vessel remaining in Imperial space after that deadline will be destroyed without warning. The communication channel went silent. Through her viewing screen, Kim Nari watched as the alien fleet began to move away, returning to whatever mission had brought them to this system. Their formation remained perfect, a display of discipline and coordination that spoke of long military tradition. As soon as the alien ships were out of immediate sensor range, Kim Nari activated her ship's emergency communication system. She needed to contact Earth Command immediately and warn them about this new threat. The message would take hours to reach Earth, but every minute counted if humanity was going to have any chance of responding to this crisis. While her communications officer prepared the urgent transmission, Kim Nari also sent a coded message to Captain Lee Minho aboard the Indomitable. She knew the human warship was somewhere in this region, and they would need all the help they could get if the situation escalated into open warfare. The message was simple, but carried the weight of humanity's future. First contact with hostile. Alien Empire. Immediate military response required. They have weapons that can vaporize asteroids. Time is running out. Admiral Kang Hyun stood in the command center of the Eternal Dominion, watching as his fleet moved into attack formation. The massive viewing screen showed 12 heavy cruisers and 6 dreadnoughts arranging themselves in a perfect defensive wall. Each ship's blue energy shields glowed brighter as they overlapped, creating an impenetrable barrier that stretched for dozens of kilometers through space. Fleet Marshal Choi Dae-ho had arrived 3 hours ago aboard his personal command vessel, the Void Render. The dreadnought was the largest ship in the fleet, nearly a kilometer long and bristling with plasma cannons. Its shields were so powerful they created visible distortions in space around the hull, bending light like a massive lens. Admiral, the formation is complete, Commander Park Ji-won reported from her station. All ships report weapons charged and shields at maximum power. We are ready to begin the extermination operation. Kang Hyun nodded with satisfaction. The human deadline had passed 6 hours ago, and as expected, no evacuation had taken place. Their long-range sensors showed human vessels still operating in all 3 contested star systems, going about their business as if the Imperial ultimatum meant nothing. It was a pattern the Admiral had seen many times before. Lesser species always believed they could negotiate or find some way to avoid the inevitable. They never seemed to understand that the Vaelthian Empire did not make empty threats. When the Empire gave an ultimatum, it was not the beginning of negotiations, but the final warning before destruction. Marshal Choi Dai-ho requests your presence in the tactical center, Park Ji-won added. Kang Hyun made his way through the ship's corridors to the tactical planning room. The space was filled with holographic displays showing detailed maps of the 3 human systems. Red dots marked the locations of human colonies, mining stations, and military outposts. There were more targets than the Admiral had expected, but nothing that couldn't be handled in a few days of systematic bombardment. Fleet Marshal Choi Dae-ho stood at the center of the room, studying the tactical displays with several other senior officers. His silver hair caught the light from the holograms, and his scarred hands moved confidently as he pointed out target priorities. "Admiral Kang Hyun, welcome," the Marshal said without looking away from the displays. "I have been reviewing the intelligence data on human military capabilities. As expected, they pose no significant threat to our operations." Dr. Yoon Sora, the fleet's chief science officer, stepped forward with a data tablet in her hands. She was younger than most of the senior staff, but her expertise in alien technology had proven valuable in previous campaigns. Her analysis of captured enemy weapons and defenses had helped the Empire achieve several quick victories. "Marshal, I have completed my evaluation of human technology based on our sensor scans," Dr. Yoon Sora said. "Their ships appear to use primitive chemical propulsion and simple metal construction. No energy shields detected. Their weapons seem to be projectile-based rather than energy-based." Choi Dae-ho smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Projectile weapons? Like the ancient kinetic systems our ancestors used centuries ago? How delightfully primitive." The other officers chuckled at this observation. The Vaelthian Empire had abandoned kinetic weapons over 500 years ago when energy-based systems proved far more effective. Plasma cannons could melt through any known material, while energy shields could absorb and dissipate even the most powerful attacks. The combination had made the Empire's military virtually unbeatable. Captain Shin Dong-woo, commander of the dreadnought Void Render, leaned against the tactical display table. He was known throughout the fleet for his aggressive tactics and complete confidence in Imperial superiority. His ship had personally destroyed over 30 enemy vessels in previous campaigns, and he had never encountered shields that could resist his plasma cannons. "How long do you estimate the operation will take, Marshal?" Captain Shin Dong-woo asked. "My crew is eager to test their skills against these humans." Choi Dae-ho consulted his tactical computer. "Based on the number and distribution of targets, I estimate 3 days for complete pacification. The human colonies appear to be lightly defended, and their military vessels are scattered across multiple systems. We will deal with each target systematically." Admiral Kang Hyun studied the holographic displays more carefully. The human settlements were indeed spread out, but they seemed well established. Mining operations, manufacturing facilities, and civilian habitats suggested a species that had been expanding into space for several decades. Still, their technology appeared to be at least 2 centuries behind Vaelthian standards. "What about their response to our demonstration?" Kang Hyun asked. "Have they attempted any military preparations?" Commander Park Ji-won pulled up communication intercepts on her portable scanner. "Our intelligence ships have detected increased message traffic between human colonies, but no significant military mobilization. A few of their patrol vessels have changed course toward our position, but they appear to be moving slowly and in small groups. This information confirmed what the Admiral already suspected. The humans were probably trying to organize some kind of diplomatic response, perhaps hoping to negotiate a peaceful settlement. They likely had no experience with a truly superior military force and did not understand that resistance was futile. Dr. Yoon Sora activated another holographic display showing detailed scans of human vessel construction. I have been analyzing the metal composition of their ship hulls. They appear to use layered armor plating made from refined iron and titanium alloys. Strong materials for their technological level, but completely vulnerable to plasma weapons. The science officer manipulated the display to show a simulation of plasma cannon effects on human armor. The hologram showed a blue energy beam striking the metal surface and instantly vaporizing several meters of plating. Even the thickest human armor would offer only seconds of protection against Imperial weapons. Their defensive strategy seems to focus on absorbing physical impacts rather than deflecting energy attacks, Dr. Yoon Sora continued. This suggests they have never encountered plasma-based weapons before. Our shields designed to absorb and disperse energy will be completely immune to their primitive projectile systems. Captain Shin Dongwu laughed loudly at this analysis. So they shoot metal bullets at energy barriers? This will be even easier than I thought. My shields could probably absorb their entire ammunition supply without showing any strain. Fleet. Marshal Choi Daeho began outlining the attack plan using the tactical displays. The Imperial fleet would divide into 3 groups, each targeting one of the human star systems. They would begin by destroying any military vessels, then systematically eliminate all infrastructure and population centers. The operation would serve as a demonstration to other species in the region about the price of defying Imperial authority. Remember, the Marshal said to his assembled officers, we are not just eliminating a military threat. We are sending a message to every species. Within 100 light years, when news of this operation spreads, other aliens will think twice before challenging Imperial expansion. Admiral Kang Hyan felt confident as he listened to the briefing. The plan was solid, the fleet was powerful, and the enemy appeared to be completely outmatched. In 72 hours, human presence in this region would be nothing but cooling debris floating in space. As the meeting concluded and officers returned to their ships, none of them noticed the small energy signature that had appeared at the edge of their sensor range. Something was approaching the Imperial fleet, moving faster than any human vessel they had previously encountered. Whatever it was would arrive in less than 12 hours, just as the Empire prepared to begin its demonstration of superior firepower. Space itself seemed to tear apart in a brilliant flash of white light. The energy distortion appeared directly above the Vaelthian fleet, creating ripples that spread outward like waves on water. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to bend and twist around the growing opening in reality. Admiral Kang Hyun was reviewing final attack plans when every alarm on the bridge started screaming at once. Officers scrambled to their stations as warning lights bathed the command center in red. The main viewing screen automatically switched to show the source of the disturbance. Admiral, massive hyperspace emergence detected directly above our formation. Commander Park Ji-won shouted over the noise of alarms. "Energy signature is enormous, larger than anything in our databases." The tear in space continued to expand, growing from a small point of light to a gaping hole several kilometers across. Strange energies crackled around its edges, and through the opening, something dark and massive was beginning to emerge. First came the bow of a ship unlike anything the Vielthians had ever seen. Where their vessels were smooth and curved, this newcomer was angular and brutal. The hull was dark gray, almost black, covered in thick armor plating that looked like it could stop a meteorite impact. There were no decorative elements, no smooth lines or artistic touches. Everything about the design spoke of pure function over form. More of the ship continued to emerge from the hyperspace portal. It kept coming and coming, stretching on for what seemed like forever. The Vielthians watched in growing amazement as the vessel reached 800 meters, then 900, then passed the 1-kilometer mark and kept growing. "Size estimate?" Admiral Kang Hyon demanded, his voice tight with surprise. "Still, emerging, sir," the sensor officer replied, his hands shaking as he worked his controls. "Current length is 1,200 meters and increasing. Mass readings are off our scales." When the ship finally finished emerging, it was nearly 1,400 meters long, making it larger than any vessel in the Imperial fleet. The hyperspace portal collapsed behind it with another flash of light, leaving the massive human warship floating alone in space above the Vielthian formation. Fleet Marshal Choi Daeho's voice crackled over the communication system from his dreadnought. "All ships, maintain formation and prepare for combat. Unknown vessel, identify yourself immediately or be destroyed." The human ship hung motionless for several seconds, as if its crew was studying the Imperial fleet below. Then weapon ports began to open along its hull. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Each opening revealed a dark barrel or focusing lens, creating an intimidating display of firepower. But these weapons looked wrong to Vielthian eyes. Where Imperial ships mounted elegant plasma cannons with smooth energy-focusing crystals, the human vessel bristled with mechanical devices. Long tubes that looked like oversized rifle barrels, rotating mounts that could track multiple targets, ammunition feeds that snaked back into the ship's interior. Captain Shin Dong-woo activated his ship's targeting systems from the bridge of the Void Render. "Marshal, I have a weapons lock on the human vessel. Shall I demonstrate the futility of their position?" Before Fleet Marshal Choi Daeho could respond, a transmission began broadcasting from the human ship on all frequencies. The voice was calm and clear, speaking in perfect Vielthian despite the obvious alien accent. "This is Captain Lee Min-ho of the Earth Defense Force warship Indomitable. You will cease all hostile actions against human colonies and withdraw from this system immediately." Admiral Kang Hyon activated his own communication system, broadcasting back to the human vessel. His voice carried the authority of someone who had never been successfully challenged in battle. "Human Captain, you are addressing Admiral Kang Hyon of the Vielthian Empire. Your single ship faces the entire Third Fleet. You have 10 seconds to surrender before we demonstrate why resistance is futile." The response came back immediately, and something in the human captain's tone made several Vielthian officers pause. There was no fear, No uncertainty, just cold professional confidence. Admiral, you have made a fundamental error in your tactical assessment. Your shields are designed to stop energy weapons. Our weapons are not energy-based. Dr. Yoon Sora, monitoring. The exchange from her science station quickly ran sensor scans on the human ship's weapon systems. The readings that came back made no sense according to Imperial military doctrine. "Admiral," she called out, "I'm detecting massive electromagnetic field generators throughout the human vessel. They appear to be magnetic acceleration systems, but the power levels are far beyond anything we've seen before." Captain Shin Dongwoo laughed over the communication channel. "Magnetic accelerators? Admiral, they're using primitive kinetic weapons. Our shields will absorb their metal projectiles like raindrops hitting a mountain." Admiral Kang Hyon felt his confidence returning. The human ship was impressive in size, but size meant nothing without proper weapons. Kinetic systems were ancient. Technology, abandoned by advanced civilizations because energy weapons were simply superior in every way. "Human Captain," the Admiral broadcast, "your weapons are obsolete. Valthian plasma shields have never been penetrated by kinetic projectiles. Your metal bullets will simply bounce off our energy barriers." The human captain's response sent a chill through every Valthian who heard it. "Admiral, I think you misunderstand the nature of our weapons. We don't fire bullets. We fire projectiles accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed." Before anyone could fully process what that meant, Captain Lee Minho continued speaking. His voice remained calm, but there was something deadly in his tone. "Your shields are energy barriers designed to absorb and deflect plasma and particle beams. They work by converting incoming energy into heat and dispersing it safely away from your ship. This is excellent protection against energy weapons." The human captain paused, and in that silence, several Imperial officers began to realize where this explanation was leading. "However, our projectiles are not energy. They are solid matter traveling at relativistic speeds. Energy shields cannot stop solid objects because they are not designed to interact with physical matter. They will pass through your barriers as if they do not exist." Dr. Yoon Sora felt her blood turn cold as she ran quick calculations on her computer. A solid projectile traveling at even 10% of light speed would carry kinetic energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. At higher percentages, the impact would be devastating beyond imagination. "That's impossible," Captain Shin Dongwoo protested over the communication channel. "No civilization uses kinetic weapons at those velocities. The engineering requirements would be enormous." Captain Lee Minho's response was simple and final. "Captain, your civilization chose to perfect energy weapons and energy defenses. We chose to perfect kinetic weapons and kinetic defenses. Today you will learn which choice was wiser." The weapon ports along the Indomitable's hull began to glow with blue-white energy as massive magnetic coils charged to full power. Deep inside the ship, automated systems loaded tungsten penetrator rods into firing chambers, each projectile precisely machined and designed to maintain structural integrity at incredible velocities. Admiral Kang Hyon stared at the human warship, finally beginning to understand that his fleet might be facing something completely outside their experience. For the first time in his career, he felt a touch of uncertainty about the outcome of a battle. "All ships, maximum shields and prepare to engage," he ordered. "We will show these humans the power of the Empire." The stage was set for a confrontation that would change everything both sides thought they knew about warfare in space. The silence in space was broken by a sound no Velthian had ever heard before. Deep inside the Indomitable, massive magnetic coils discharged their stored energy with a thunderous crack that vibrated through the ship's hull. The sound was felt, rather than heard, a physical force that announced the birth of destruction. Admiral Kang Hyun watched his tactical display as the human ship fired its first salvo. 3 projectiles launched from different weapon ports, accelerated by magnetic fields so powerful they created visible distortions in space around the ship's hull. The tungsten rods were invisible to the naked eye, moving too fast for organic senses to track. But the fleet's sensors registered their approach. "Incoming projectiles detected," Commander Park Ji-won reported, her voice steady despite the fear, growing in her chest. "Impact in 4 seconds. All ships report shields at maximum power." The first target was the heavy cruiser Stellar Pride, positioned on the left flank of the Velthian formation. Captain Moon Jae-sung had commanded the vessel for 8 years and had never lost a battle. His plasma shields glowed brilliant blue as they absorbed energy from the ship's reactors, creating what should have been an impenetrable barrier. The tungsten rod struck the energy shield at 30% of light speed. For a microsecond, the projectile passed through the glowing barrier as if it were empty space. The shield's energy field, designed to interact with plasma and particle beams, had no effect whatsoever on solid matter traveling at relativistic velocity. The projectile hit the Stellar Pride's hull with the force of a nuclear weapon. The impact created a flash of light visible across the entire battlefield as the tungsten rod punched completely through the ship from bow to stern. Armor plating that could withstand asteroid impacts melted and vaporized instantly. Internal bulkheads designed to contain explosive decompression simply ceased to exist. The heavy cruiser broke apart in seconds. Its hull cracked along stress lines as atmosphere and debris erupted from the massive wound in its center. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship as damaged systems overloaded. Within 30 seconds of impact, the Stellar Pride was nothing but expanding wreckage and cooling plasma. Captain Shin Dong-woo stared at his tactical display in shock. "That's impossible. No weapon can penetrate Velthian shields. There must be some kind of malfunction." His answer came in the form of 2 more impacts. The second tungsten rod struck the heavy cruiser Void Hunter, punching through its shields and hull with the same devastating effect. The third projectile hit the cruiser Galactic Sword, creating another expanding cloud of debris where a proud Imperial warship had been moments before. In less than a minute, 3 of the Empire's most advanced vessels had been reduced to scrap metal. Their shields, the foundation of Velthian military doctrine, had provided no protection at all. Dr. Yoon Sora frantically worked at her science station, running analysis after analysis of the attack data. Her hands shook as she processed readings that contradicted everything she thought she knew about physics, and warfare. "Admiral, the projectiles passed through our energy shields without any interaction," she reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "The shields cannot absorb or deflect solid matter at those velocities. Our entire defensive system is useless against kinetic weapons." Admiral Kang Hyon felt his world collapse around him. 2 centuries of imperial expansion had been built on the superiority of plasma shields and energy weapons. Every victory, every conquered system, every tactical doctrine in the imperial military was based on technologies that had just been proven obsolete. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," he ordered, his voice cracking slightly. "Prepare to return fire." The Vielthian fleet began to move, their elegant formation breaking apart as individual ships tried to avoid becoming the next target. But their vessels, designed for formation fighting behind protective shields, were not built for high-speed maneuvering. The humans had positioned their ship perfectly to control the battle space. Captain Lee Minho's voice came over the communication. Channel, calm and professional despite the destruction he had just unleashed. "Admiral Kang Hyon, you have seen what our weapons can do. I offer you one final chance to withdraw your fleet and leave human space peacefully." Fleet Marshal Choi Daeho's response came from the dreadnought Void Render, his voice filled with rage and desperation. "Never! All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel. Show them the power of Imperial plasma cannons." 6 ships turned their weapons toward the Indomitable and fired simultaneously. Brilliant beams of blue-white energy lanced across space, each one carrying enough power to melt through a mountain. The plasma bolts struck the human ship's dark hull and exploded in massive fireballs that lit up the surrounding space. When the glare faded, the Indomitable was still there, apparently undamaged. Its armor plating showed scorch marks where the plasma had hit, but the ship's structure remained intact. The human vessel had been designed to survive impacts from space debris traveling at interstellar speeds, and its armor could absorb and disperse energy attacks that would cripple other ships. "Minimal damage to enemy vessel," reported the sensor officer aboard the Eternal Dominion. "Their armor appears to be specifically designed to resist energy weapons." Captain Lee Minho's voice came over the communication channel again, and this time there was a note of grim satisfaction in his tone. "Your turn is over, Admiral. Now it's ours." The Indomitable's weapon ports erupted in a coordinated barrage that lit up space like a newborn star. Dozens of tungsten rods launched simultaneously, each one accelerated to devastating velocity by the ship's massive magnetic systems. The projectiles spread out in a carefully calculated pattern designed to overwhelm the Vielthian fleet's ability to evade. The heavy cruiser Iron Fist took a direct hit through its command section, killing the entire bridge crew instantly. The cruiser Stellar Hammer lost its main reactor when a tungsten rod punched through its shielding and detonated the containment field. The dreadnought Cosmic Spear tried to use its massive bulk to ram the human ship, but 3 projectiles struck it simultaneously, breaking its back and sending both halves spinning away into space. Commander Park Ji-won watched in horror as her fleet disintegrated around her. Ships that had been the pride of the Empire were being destroyed faster than she could count them. The tactical display showed red warning symbols where proud vessels had been only minutes before. "Admiral, we've lost 7 ships," she reported, her voice hollow with shock. "Hull breaches on 4 more. The Void Render is requesting immediate assistance." Admiral Kang Hyon looked at the main viewing screen and saw Fleet Marshal Choi Daeho's flagship listing badly to one side, atmosphere venting from multiple hull breaches. The dreadnought's shields were still functioning, but they provided no protection against the human weapons that treated energy barriers like they didn't exist. "Sir, incoming message from the human ship," the communications officer announced. Captain Lee Min-ho's image appeared on the main screen. He was a middle-aged human with graying hair and calm eyes that seemed to see everything. Behind him, the Indomitable's bridge was busy but controlled, with crew members efficiently managing their devastating weapon systems. "Admiral Kang Hyon, you have fought bravely, but this battle is over. Surrender now, and I will allow your surviving ships to withdraw. Continue fighting, and I will be forced to destroy your entire fleet." The Admiral looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. Fear, shock, and disbelief stared back at him. Everything they had believed about warfare, about Imperial superiority, had been shattered in less than 10 minutes of combat. For the first time in his career, Admiral Kang Hyun faced the possibility of total defeat. Admiral Kang Hyon stared at the tactical display showing the remains of his once mighty fleet. 8 ships destroyed, 4 more heavily damaged, and the survivors scattered across space like frightened animals. The pride of the Velthian Empire had been reduced to burning wreckage in less than 15 minutes of combat. "All remaining ships, retreat to hyperspace jump coordinates," he ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. "Execute emergency withdrawal protocols immediately." But as the surviving vessels tried to regroup and flee, they discovered another problem. The human ship had positioned itself perfectly to control all the major hyperspace exit points from this region of space. Any ship trying to jump to light speed would have to pass dangerously close to the Indomitable's weapons range. Captain Lee Min-ho seemed to anticipate their every move. As the heavy cruiser Dawn's Edge tried to reach a jump point, the human ship rotated smoothly and fired a precise shot that destroyed the cruiser's hyperspace drive. The Valthian vessel was left drifting in normal space, unable to escape, but still alive. "Hyperspace drives only," Captain Lee Min-ho announced over the communication channel. "I am not interested in needless killing. Surrender and your crews will be treated according to the laws of war." Fleet Marshal Choi Daeho, still aboard the badly damaged Void Render, refused to accept defeat. His dreadnought was listing heavily. To one side, atmosphere venting from multiple hull breaches, but its main guns were still functional. The old warrior had never retreated from any battle in his long career. "All ships, ignore the withdrawal order," he broadcast on the command frequency. "Form up on my position. We will ram the human vessel and show them that Velthian warriors do not surrender." The Marshal's plan was desperate, but not completely without logic. The Void Render was still a massive ship, nearly a kilometer long and built like a fortress. If he could get close enough to collide with the human vessel, the impact might cause enough damage to cripple or destroy it. Even if his own ship was lost in the process, it would be a worthy sacrifice. 3 other damaged vessels moved to support the Marshal's final charge. The heavy cruiser Starbreaker, the dreadnought Iron Will, and the cruiser Galactic Honor formed a rough line behind the Void Render. Their shields were still functioning, and their crews were ready to die for the honor of the Empire. Captain Lee Min-ho watched the Velthian ships approach on his tactical display. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Commander Kim Soy-yeon, looked up from her station with concern. "Captain, they're trying to ram us. Should I target their engines to stop them?" Minho considered his options carefully. He could easily destroy the approaching ships, but doing so would kill thousands of enemy crew members who were only following orders. There had to be a better way to end this battle without unnecessary bloodshed. "Negative, Lieutenant Commander. Target their weapon systems only. Disable them but leave their hulls intact." The Indomitable's point defense systems came online, revealing another surprise that the Velthians had not anticipated. Smaller magnetic accelerators mounted along. The ship's hull began firing streams of projectiles at incredible rates. These were not the massive tungsten rods that had destroyed the Imperial cruisers, but smaller rounds designed for precision targeting. The results were devastatingly accurate. Plasma cannon turrets on the approaching Velthian ships exploded as tungsten pellets struck them at relativistic speeds. Weapon control systems were severed, power conduits were cut, and missile launchers were reduced to twisted metal. Within seconds, the 4 charging ships had been completely disarmed without significant damage to their hulls or crew compartments. Fleet Marshal Choi Dae-ho watched in frustration as his weapons went offline one by one. His tactical officer reported that all main guns were destroyed, secondary weapons were gone, and even the point defense systems had been surgically removed. The Void Render was still moving toward the human ship, but it was now completely harmless. "Engines to full power," the Marshal ordered. "If we cannot fight, we will at least make them pay the price of ramming." The dreadnought accelerated toward the Indomitable, its massive bulk gaining speed as it closed the distance. Captain Lee Min-ho waited until the last possible moment, then fired his maneuvering thrusters. The human ship moved with surprising agility for its size, sliding sideways just enough to avoid a direct collision. The Void Render passed within a few hundred meters of the Indomitable's hull, close enough for the crews of both ships to see each other through their viewing ports. But instead of the devastating impact that Fleet Marshal Choi Dae-ho had planned, his ship simply sailed past the human vessel and continued into empty space. What happened next shocked every Velthian who witnessed it. The human ship moved alongside. The drifting dreadnought and extended mechanical arms from its hull. These robotic appendages reached out and gently grasped the Void Render, stopping its forward motion and holding it steady. "This is Captain Lee Min-ho to Fleet Marshal Choi Dae-ho," came the transmission. "Your ship is disabled, and your crew is in danger from atmospheric leaks. I am prepared to assist with emergency repairs and medical aid." The offer of help from an enemy was completely outside Velthian military experience. In all their campaigns of conquest, The Empire had never shown mercy to defeated foes, and they had never expected mercy from others. The concept of treating prisoners with care was foreign to their warrior culture. Fleet Marshal Choi Dae-ho was silent for several long minutes, struggling to understand this unprecedented situation. Finally, he opened a communication channel to respond. "Human Captain, why do you offer aid to your enemies? We came here to destroy your people and claim your territory by the laws of war. You have the right to execute all survivors." Captain Lee Min-ho's response was calm and patient. "Marshal, my species believes that courage deserves respect, even when it is shown by an enemy. Your crews fought bravely according to their training and beliefs. They do not deserve to die simply because their leaders made poor decisions." Admiral Kang Hyeon, watching the exchange from his own damaged flagship, felt something he had never experienced before. Shame. Not shame at losing the battle, but shame at the realization that humanity showed more honor in victory than the Empire had ever shown to its conquered enemies. Dr. Yoon Sora was frantically analyzing the human ship's technology, trying to understand how they had achieved such devastating effectiveness. Her readings showed that the Indomitable was not just a warship, but also a mobile repair facility, medical center, and rescue vessel. It was designed to fight when necessary, but also to save lives and provide humanitarian aid. "Admiral," she reported quietly, "their ship is equipped with advanced medical facilities and repair systems. They could actually help our wounded crew members better than our own medical ships." Captain Kim Nari, still alive in her small exploration vessel at the edge of the battle zone, had recorded everything that happened. She watched in amazement as the human warship that had just destroyed an entire Imperial fleet was now working to save the lives of enemy survivors. The tide of the battle had turned completely, but not in the way anyone had expected. Instead of mutual annihilation, the conflict was ending with an offer of mercy that would change both civilizations forever. Admiral Kang Hyeon floated in the medical bay of the human warship Indomitable, staring at the ceiling while human doctors worked to heal wounds he had received when his ship was damaged. The medical equipment was unlike anything in the Valthian Empire, using advanced scanners and healing devices that worked faster and more effectively than Imperial technology. 3 days had passed since the battle that destroyed his fleet. 3 days of watching human crew members work tirelessly to save Valthian lives, repair damaged ships, and provide food and shelter to enemy survivors. The Admiral had expected to be executed or imprisoned, but instead he was being treated. As an honored guest, Dr. Sarah Chen, the human chief medical officer, finished checking his injuries and smiled kindly. "You're healing well, Admiral. The fractures in your rib should be completely mended by tomorrow. Your people are remarkably resilient." Kang Hyun struggled to understand this treatment. "Doctor, why do you waste valuable medical supplies on an enemy? In the Empire, defeated commanders are executed to prevent future resistance." The human doctor looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Admiral, you were injured in battle. It's our duty to help anyone who needs medical care, regardless of which side they fought on. That's what separates us from simple killers." The Admiral had spent the last 3 days observing human behavior and trying to understand their motivations. Everything about their culture seemed backward compared to Velthian traditions. They showed mercy to enemies, shared resources with strangers, and treated defeated opponents with respect rather than contempt. Captain Lee Minho entered the medical bay, carrying a data tablet and wearing the same calm expression he had shown throughout the battle. He sat down in a chair beside the Admiral's bed and activated the tablet's holographic display. "Admiral, I wanted to discuss the future relationship between our species," he said without any trace of anger or hostility. "My government has reviewed the situation and prepared a proposal that might interest you." Kang Hyun expected demands for surrender, tribute payments, or territorial concessions. Instead, the holographic display showed something completely unexpected. A mutual defense treaty between humanity and the Velthian Empire. "You want to be our allies?" the Admiral asked, his voice filled with confusion. "We attacked your colonies and threatened to destroy your people. Why would you trust us after that?" Captain Lee Minho leaned back in his chair and considered his words carefully. "Admiral, our species made a fundamental error in how we approached each other. You saw humans as primitive and weak, while we saw Velthians as hostile invaders. Neither assumption was correct." The human captain manipulated the holographic display to show technical specifications for both human and Velthian technologies. "Your energy weapons and shield systems are actually quite advanced. Our kinetic weapons happen to be perfectly suited to defeat energy barriers, but that doesn't make us superior in every way." Kang Hyun studied the display with growing interest. The human analysis showed that Velthian plasma technology could be incredibly effective against targets that relied on physical armor rather than energy shields. In a battle against a different enemy, the Empire's weapons might have proven devastating. "Your species chose to master energy manipulation," Captain Lee Minho continued. "Ours chose to master kinetic force and physical engineering. Neither approach is inherently better than the other. They're just different solutions to the same problems." The Admiral was beginning to understand something that had never occurred to him before. Military technology was not a simple progression from primitive to advanced. Different species might develop different capabilities based on their environment, resources, and cultural values. What seemed primitive to one race might actually be highly sophisticated to another. Fleet Marshal Choi Daiho entered the medical bay, moving slowly because of injuries to his legs. The old warrior had spent the last 3 days in intensive care, and his recovery was taking longer than the younger officers. But his eyes were alert and thoughtful as he approached the Admiral's bed. "Kang Hyun, I have been speaking with the human engineers about their ship design," he said, settling carefully into another chair. "Their approach to warfare is completely different from ours, but it is not inferior. It is simply based on different principles." The Marshal activated his own data tablet and showed the Admiral detailed scans of the Indomitable's hull construction. "Look at this armor plating. It appears crude and heavy compared to our energy shields, but it is actually a marvel of engineering. The metal is composed of hundreds of different alloys, each layer designed to handle specific types of damage." Admiral, Kang Hyun examined the technical data with fascination. The human armor was indeed sophisticated, using principles of material science that the Empire had never explored. While Velthians had focused on creating energy barriers, humans had perfected the art of making physical materials stronger and more resilient. Their weapons follow the same philosophy, Fleet Marshal Choi Daeho continued. We developed plasma cannons that could melt through any known material. They developed magnetic accelerators that could punch through any known barrier. Both approaches have their advantages. Dr. Yoon Sora appeared in the doorway of the medical bay, carrying several data tablets and looking excited despite her recent experiences. She had spent the last 3 days working with human scientists, exchanging information and learning about technologies that the Empire had never considered. "Admiral, you need to see what we've discovered," she said, rushing to his bedside and activating her tablets. "The humans have agreed to share some of their technical knowledge with us. The possibilities for combining our technologies are incredible." Holographic displays showed theoretical designs for hybrid weapon systems that used both Velthian energy manipulation and human kinetic principles. Plasma-enhanced projectiles that could punch through armor and then detonate with devastating effect. Magnetic shields that could deflect both energy attacks and physical projectiles. "This is impossible," Admiral Kang Hyun said, but his tone suggested wonder rather than disbelief. "Our technologies are completely incompatible," Dr. Yoon Sora smiled, and for the first time since the battle, she looked genuinely happy. "That's what I thought too, Admiral, but the human scientists showed me that incompatible technologies can actually complement each other. They call it synergistic development." Captain Lee Min-ho stood up and moved to the center of the group, his expression serious but hopeful. "Admiral, Marshal, Doctor, I want to make you an offer that could change the future for both our species." The human captain paused to make sure he had everyone's attention, then continued. "Earth Command is prepared to establish a joint research program between our civilizations. We'll share our kinetic weapons technology in exchange for your energy manipulation systems. Together we might develop defenses and weapons that neither species could create alone." Admiral Kang Hyun felt his understanding of the universe shift once again. For centuries, the Velthian Empire had expanded through conquest and domination, taking what they wanted from weaker species. The humans were proposing something completely different. Voluntary cooperation that would benefit everyone involved. "What about the colonies we threatened?" he asked. "What about the damage we caused to your exploration ships?" Captain Lee Min-ho's response was immediate and firm. "Those incidents are in the past, Admiral. What matters now is preventing future conflicts and building something better for both our peoples." The Admiral looked around at the faces of his officers and saw the same realization dawning in their eyes. The humans were offering not just peace, but partnership. They were suggesting that former enemies could become allies, that different approaches to technology could strengthen rather than threaten each other. For the first time since the battle began, Admiral Kang Hyun began to believe that losing this war might actually be the best thing that had ever happened to the Velthian Empire. 6 months later, Admiral Lee Min-ho stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, watching as Vaelthian and human ships worked together to build the galaxy's first joint military base. The space station was a marvel of combined engineering, using human structural techniques and Vaelthian energy systems to create something neither species could have built alone. The ceremony today would mark the official signing of the Mutual Defense Pact between Earth and the Vaelthian Empire. Representatives from both governments had traveled here to witness the historic agreement that would change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Admiral Kang Hyan approached from the other side of the observation deck, wearing a new uniform that combined elements of both human and Vaelthian military traditions. His recovery from the injuries sustained in their first battle had been complete, and he now served as the Empire's liaison officer to the Joint Fleet Command. "Admiral Lee," he said with a respectful nod, "the ceremony preparations are complete. Both delegations are ready to proceed with the signing." Lee Min-ho smiled at his former enemy, still amazed by how much had changed in such a short time. The man who had once threatened to destroy human colonies was now one of his most trusted colleagues and closest friends. "Thank you, Kang Hyan. I never imagined that our first meeting would lead to something like this." The two admirals walked together toward the main conference room, passing through corridors where human and Vaelthian crew members worked side by side. The integration had not been easy at first, with language barriers and cultural differences creating numerous challenges. But the shared experience of building something new had brought the two species closer together. Commander Park Ji-won was waiting for them in the conference room, reviewing last-minute details with her human counterpart, Captain Kim Nari. The former exploration ship captain had been promoted after her crucial role in documenting the first contact incident, and she now commanded one of the Joint Fleet's new hybrid vessels. "Admirals, all diplomatic protocols have been confirmed," Park Ji-won reported. "The signing ceremony will begin in 1 hour, followed by the demonstration of our new combined weapons systems." The demonstration was something both sides were eager to see. Human and Vaelthian engineers had been working together for months to develop new technologies that combined kinetic and energy-based principles. The results had exceeded everyone's expectations. Dr. Yoon Sora entered the room carrying a data tablet and wearing the expression of excitement that had become her trademark since beginning work with human scientists. She had been appointed as the Chief Technology Officer for the Joint Research Program, and her enthusiasm for the project was infectious. "Admirals, I have the final test results from this morning's weapons trials," she announced, activating her tablet's holographic display. The plasma-enhanced kinetic projectiles performed exactly as predicted. Penetration capability increased by 300% compared to standard tungsten rods. The new weapons were revolutionary, combining the shield-piercing ability of human kinetic systems with the destructive power of Vaelthian plasma technology. A tungsten rod wrapped in controlled plasma fields could punch through any known defense and then detonate with devastating effect inside the target. Admiral Lee Min-ho studied the technical data with satisfaction. "What about the defensive systems?" Dr. Yoon Sora switched to another display showing test results for their hybrid shielding technology. "The magnetic plasma barriers are equally impressive. They can deflect both energy weapons and physical projectiles by using magnetic fields to redirect incoming attacks. The new shields represented a complete breakthrough in defensive technology. Instead of simply absorbing attacks like traditional energy barriers, the hybrid systems could actually push incoming threats away from the protected vessel. Plasma bolts would be bent around the ship, while kinetic projectiles would be deflected harmlessly into space. Fleet Marshal Choi Dae-ho arrived with a group of senior officers from both species, all wearing the new Joint Fleet uniforms that had been designed to honor both human and Valthian traditions. The old warrior had adapted well to the new cooperative approach, becoming one of the strongest advocates for continued technological exchange. "The diplomatic delegations have arrived," he announced. "Earth President Williams and Imperial Chancellor Kang So-min are ready to begin the ceremony." The signing ceremony was held in the station's main assembly hall, a large space with viewing windows that offered spectacular views of the Joint Fleet. Representatives from both governments sat at a curved table designed to symbolize equality and cooperation, rather than the hierarchical arrangements typical of imperial traditions. President Williams was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and kind eyes that reminded Admiral Lee Min-ho of the human medical officers who had treated Valthian wounded after the battle. She spoke with quiet authority as she addressed the assembled delegates. 6 months ago, our species met as enemies on the field of battle. Today, we gather as allies and partners in building a better future for both our peoples. This treaty represents more than just a military alliance. It is a commitment to shared values of cooperation, respect, and mutual defense. Imperial Chancellor Kang So-min was younger than most expected for such a high position, but her intelligence and diplomatic skills had made her one of the Empire's most respected leaders. She had been instrumental in convincing the Imperial Council to approve the alliance despite strong opposition from traditional military factions. "The Valthian Empire has learned valuable lessons from our encounter with humanity," she said, her voice carrying throughout the assembly hall. "We discovered that strength comes not from domination, but from cooperation, not from conquest, but from partnership. This treaty marks the beginning of a new era for our civilization." The actual signing took only a few minutes, but the implications would be felt throughout the galaxy for generations to come. As the two leaders put their signatures on the historic document, the assembled crowd erupted in applause from both species. Captain Kim Nari watched from the observation gallery, remembering her terror during that first encounter with the Imperial fleet. Now she commanded a vessel that incorporated the best technologies from both civilizations, and her crew included both human and Valthian officers working in perfect harmony. The demonstration that followed the ceremony was equally impressive. 3 new hybrid warships, each one incorporating advanced systems from both species, performed a coordinated exercise that showcased their incredible capabilities. Their weapons could penetrate any known defense, while their shields could deflect attacks that would have destroyed older vessels. But the most significant demonstration was not technological. As news of the alliance spread throughout the galaxy, other species began to take notice. The Zephyrian Confederacy, which had been conquered by the Empire decades earlier, sent diplomatic inquiries about joining the alliance. The Molten Worlds Republic requested meetings to discuss trade agreements and technological exchange. Admiral Lee Minho stood once again on the observation deck, this time joined by Admiral Kang Hyan and a dozen other officers from both species. In the distance, construction crews were working on expansion modules that would house delegations from other civilizations interested in joining their growing alliance. "What do you think the future holds?" Kang Hyan asked, watching as ships from multiple species approached the station. Lee Minho considered the question carefully before answering. "I think we've started something that will change the entire galaxy. Other species are learning that they don't have to choose between conquest and submission. There's a third option: cooperation. The age of imperial expansion through military force was ending. The age of growth through partnership and shared technology was just beginning. And at the center of it all was the lesson learned in a single battle: that different approaches to solving problems could strengthen each other rather than create conflict. The galaxy would never be the same again.